Alright, so for the next notebook we're gonna look at functions. So let's create a new notebook, call it Intro to Functions. Import the standard libraries and ask it to make our graphs in line. Import matplotlib pyplot as plt and import numpy as np. Shift enter. Introduction to functions. So to start, we'll just look at three different kinds of functions: a linear, quadratic, and exponential function. To define these, we start with define. We give them a name. So for the linear function, I'll call it L. We ask whatever kind of inputs we want, and then after a colon, we say return. And since it's linear, I'm just going to ask this to return 2 times x minus 4. I'll define a quadratic function, define q of x, and return 4 times x squared. And we'll define an exponential function and return 2 to the x. And now what I can do is I can evaluate any of these functions for a given input. So for example, the L of 5 you see gives me 6 because what this does is takes 5, multiplies it by 2, subtracts 4 from it, and spits that out. Similarly, Q of 5 is 100 because 5 squared is 25 times 4 is 100. And lastly, E of 5 is 32 because 2 to the 5th is 32. Usually we're not interested in these functions at only a specific value. Instead, we're interested at them across a range of values for x, which we're going to define using the linspace command from numpy. So let's create an array. That's what these will be called, of using linspace, np.linspace. And we want to look at maybe what these plots look like from -2 to 2. And I'm going to create just 1,000 points. And what that does is that breaks this interval up into 1,000 equally spaced points. So that now if I ask for what L of x is, it's a very large array that goes from starting with -2 up until, but not including, +2, with it broken into 1,000 values. So the reason that this is useful is for plotting. Let's create a figure, plt.figure, and we'll plot each of these functions together. This time our plot command will take an input, which is the x values, and an output, which will be the function evaluated at those x values. So we're going to plot the linear function, we're going to plot the quadratic function, and we're going to plot the exponential or power function as well on the same plot, and there we go. So as per usual, we could have changed the marker here, but we have so many points that you see the effect of that is you can't really see any of those points to begin with. So functions and their plots.